from the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. All right, we're going to do one and only one episode on the Charlie Kirk thing. Not just because it's sensational or it's the top story of the day, but because the response and the aftermath, I believe, is genuinely important in the overall story of our times here with the regime as it currently stands, their attempted takeover, their destruction of democracy. So, yeah, there are things to talk about here regarding the shooting. So today, my final thoughts on the Kirk aftermath. And we have a couple new words to learn if you haven't learned them yet. Stochastic terrorism, stochastic, and Groyper. If you're not familiar with these words, you're going to learn some new words today. All right, first, just some facts. The real Charlie Kirk. Let's not get confused as to who Charlie Kirk was. He was the worst kind of person. He blasphemed the truth. He blasphemed reason. He exploited language, which was one of my least favorite things about people when they make language into a weapon. I use the word blaspheme. Of course, that has religious connotations. He blasphemed religion itself. In my early years, I had a very close relationship with my religion. I was raised Catholic. And to this day, my family, some of them especially, have a very strong relationship with their religion. And his version of Christian nationalism, along with J.D. Vance, I don't have to get into the details here. I encourage you to look it up. It's sick. By now, you've probably heard many of his controversial statements. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. He thought Martin Luther King was awful, not a good person. Calls transgender a mental disease. Horrible things about women. Again, I don't have to go through the list. It's out there. It's very easy to find this stuff. The most infamous quote that we've heard in the coverage was regarding the Second Amendment. It's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. I forget how I read somebody online put it. I didn't support Charlie's death. Charlie supported it, or something like that. I need to talk a little bit about the whole debate thing, too. Because people who don't know better were giving him all sorts of praise for being willing to debate. He invited people of the other side to come and make their views heard. Well, that's such a lot of garbage. He was a master. Again, he was a very smart guy, very talented, absolutely. And he was especially talented at using logical fallacies. Now, a logical fallacy can be a mistake, or it can be an intentional weapon of rhetoric. Anybody who's really good can, quote unquote, win a debate. And he won pretty much all of his debates using this sort of sketchy technique. It wasn't so much debating as it was marketing, advertising for his cause. Truth doesn't matter. Facts don't really matter. No, he wasn't debating. He's a trickster. All sorts of tricks. This rapid-fire talking. He'd manipulate the discussions, these campus events. He'd kind of lure these young students nowhere near his skill level at doing this kind of thing. He would just sort of overwhelm them, make multiple points at once, makes it impossible to respond. He would do this thing where they force you to answer a question that can't be answered. You know, it's the how many angels on the head of a pin kind of a thing. Or they ask you to get real precise. Well, name your source. Name your exact source. Define this. Define an assault rifle. You know, ask you these impossible questions. He'd shout. He'd interrupt. Yeah, he was absolutely focused on beating his opponents rather than engaging in any genuine discussion or debate. And of course, he was the one videotaping. All of the videotapes you see online are from his outfit, edited for his advantage. So it was just all a sham. Don't fall for the tricks of the so-called debater. They're like a cold reading from a so-called psychic. They just know how to do it. But as I've said now a couple times, he was very good at it. I'm going to give him that credit. A lot of people can win any debate. It has nothing to do at all with whether or not they're right or wrong. It has everything to do with their skills, with their tricks. He would never, ever win in a more kind of the U.S. Senate model, not so much how they operate these days, but the ideal model of the senatorial debate. Deliberate, thoughtful. There are rules. You have all the time to do it right. There's the ability to fact check. There's an inability to railroad your opponent. A debate can go on for hours or for days even. But please, all of this garbage about him being a debater, you just need to toss that. It's not true. Along with his reputation for being so polite and for smiling all the time, and that makes him even more insidious. There's one thing about the scowling Mussolini-type fascist. A smiling, polite fascist just taking great pleasure and glee in spouting their hate and defeating their enemies is somehow just even worse. It's just gross. All right, facts. We're talking facts here. The shooter. Almost everything was wrong about the shooter. Here's another word we're going to learn today. If you don't know it, look up the word Groyper, Groyper, Groyper. This is a movement, informal movement led by Nick Fuentes, infamous racist, bigot, white nationalist. And it appears now that the shooter was terminally online. All of the etchings on the shell casings you may have heard about referred to online phrases or memes from this far alt-right movement. Family was 100% MAGA Republican. Deep into gun culture, been shooting since he was a little kid. And then this extreme online radicalization. And I guess Fuentes hated Charlie Kirk. For years has been trolling him and harassing him. These so-called Groypers would show up at Charlie Kirk events and terrorize him and troll him. And yeah, Kirk wasn't extreme enough for the Fuentes people. So there was that period of about 24 hours or a little longer. We had no idea who the shooter was. And the right wing immediately went into their assumptions and then their condemnation of the so-called far left. So it was all bogus. So the facts are the first thing. They say what? Truth is the first casualty of war. Well, that little slogan applies to any event, especially one like this. Don't let yourself fall into that. Choose your media wisely. We're going to talk about media in more detail in a little bit here. Slow down, think, consider, take your time, go on the evidence. Okay, next, the regime itself. Classic fascist, anti-intellectualism, white Christian nationalism, patriarchy, corrupt the youth. Of course they were going to exploit this to target the resistance, to try to silence dissent, to justify the police state. Because as we all know, the Orange Menace is literally building his own army right in front of us, his own paramilitary. So of course he was going to take advantage of this. His speech was absolutely on the nose. No surprises. Charlie Kirk was a great man and a martyr for truth and freedom. Just over the top. So over the top. But most chilling and frightening of this speech, not just the sanctifying of this charlatan, but then an immediate blaming the so-called radical left, directly responsible for terrorism. And then he takes it to a level that, again, is predictable, but yet still chilling. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. So that's just wide open. Anyone and everyone who he considers a political enemy can be labeled as such, and the full weight of the federal government can come down on them. From the attack on my life in Butler, which was not a left-wing, the shooter there was not left-wing by any stretch of the imagination. Talks about the murder of the United Healthcare executive. Again, Mangione, not left-wing. Mentions the shooting of Steve Scalise. That's the one I'll give him. Yeah, that was a left-wing nut job. Okay, you got one. Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. No. Nope. It hasn't. It's a lie. You've heard me say this many times. There is no radical left in this country. I'm the radical left. That's how I know. I'm constantly yelling at the Democrats. I'm yelling at the so-called left in this country to do something. I'm the radical left. That's how I know they're not the radical left. That's how I know that it doesn't exist in this country except for me and a handful of my online buddies. It's a lie. They know it's a lie. While we're reading quotes here, let me read you Stephen Miller from a couple of weeks ago. August 25th, on an appearance, Sean Hannity, quote, "The Democrat Party does not fight for, care about, or represent American citizens. It is an entity devoted exclusively to the defense of hardened criminals, gangbangers, and illegal alien killers and terrorists. The Democrat Party is not a political party. It is a domestic extremist organization." So this is the side that's telling us that our language, our rhetoric, is too extreme. That is bananas. That's an insane statement by Stephen Miller. Because the truth about political rhetoric and political violence is all one-sided. As I said, there's the one nut job who hit Steve Scalise in 2017. I'm looking at it here. That's when that was. So 8 years ago. Name one more. I'll wait. I've got a list here. Oh, there is one more. The firebombing of the New Mexico Republican Party headquarters in March 2025. A left-wing nut. We got two. They didn't kill anybody. Of course, that's no excuse. I'm not diminishing or dismissing. Okay, I'll give you two. New Mexico Republican Party headquarters and Steve Scalise. Attempted. You want the list of incidents from right-wing political violence in the U.S. in recent years? It's too long to read. Tucson, the Wisconsin Sikh temple shooting, the Charleston church shooting, the Charlottesville car ramming attack. Remember that at the Unite the Right rally? The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, 11 killed. El Paso Walmart shooting, 22 killed. Another killed in a San Diego suburb synagogue. The Paul Pelosi hammer attack, which they joked about. Allen, Texas, outlet mall shooting, 8 killed, 7 wounded. Jacksonville Dollar General shooting, 3 killed. All of these right-wing extremists, all of them. I could go on. The 2018 pipe bomb mailed to prominent Democrats. The 2020 Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. The January 6th Capitol insurrection. 1,400 insurrectionists guilty of violent attack. Police officers injured, killed. The Orange Menace pardoned all 1,400. Governor Josh Shapiro and his family, an attempted assassination by arson. State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband in Minnesota, killed at their doorstep. And now the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. All of them right-wing. All of them. So no, don't give me this both sides garbage, and please don't fall for it. Please. So within minutes of the death of Charlie Kirk, Right-wingers all across the nation, many in very high places, including and up to the President of the United States, were filling our feeds with violent, horrible, incendiary rhetoric designed to inflame violence, including Representative Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin, up there in the 3rd District. I've got friends up there. Please, for the love of God, get this guy out of office. I'm not sure these people understand what they have done. We are done letting the brown shirts terrorize us. The gloves are off. He wrote, "Yesterday is the reason I will be at war for the next 20 years. I will not allow these leftist scumbags to take my country." Wow. That's a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, fanning the flames for violence. And he was far from alone. The guys over at Midas Touch put together a compilation of tweets. The Democratic Party must be classified as a domestic terror organization and their members, leaders, treated accordingly. Charlie Kirk getting shot is the shot heard round the world. I'm ready for civil war. Elon Musk, if they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die. He also wrote, the left is the party of murder. There's no going back after this. There's no more words to be said. The only way this ends is the complete annihilation of the Democratic Party. It goes on and on and on and on. All while they had no idea who the shooter was. No idea. Since we found out he was ultra right-wing from a MAGA family. Any retractions, you think? Any apologies? Pfft. So all these little cosplaying weekend warriors, these pretend tough guys, are just foaming at the mouth for a civil war. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen, but I have no trouble believing that they can wreak some havoc in a series of incidents. Plus, the Orange Menace is quite clearly building his private paramilitary, accountable only to him. He's working his little magic with his unitary executive lawyers and with his part-time Fox TV host, alcoholic Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the architects of Project 2025. They've all got their heads together building a domestic army. Mussolini's black shirts, Hitler's stormtroopers, sending the military into democratic cities, troops in the streets. What do you think they're doing? We still have 13 and a half months to the midterms. They've got all their little green army men lined up, or they will, and ready to go. So he can declare an insurrection. He can postpone or cancel the elections. He can confiscate voting machines. He can intimidate voters. He can post his toy soldiers at voting locations, intimidate people. This is the regime. This is who we are now. And this is why I'm spending time on the Charlie Kirk shooting, because they're going to make every effort to exploit it, to help justify, rationalize, excuse their fascist paramilitary buildup. So what can we do about it? Well, we have to keep fighting in all the ways you and I talk about all the time. State and local governments are doing a great job. So very proud of Chicago, local leadership, the people of Chicago rising up because he backed off. They're leaving Chicago with their tails between their legs. Now apparently they're going to try Memphis. Tennessee has a Republican governor. Maybe they'll have some more luck there. But maybe not. We got a good Democratic mayor. We got the people of Memphis. So, yeah, we just got to keep doing all the things we keep talking about. Non-cooperation. Don't obey in advance. Boycotts, strikes, calls, letters, street protests. Sabotage. Okay, I mentioned earlier a new vocabulary word for some of us. Do you know what stochastic terrorism is? Stochastic? It's the use of media or rhetoric to indirectly inspire acts of violence by unpredictable individuals, making attacks probable but not precisely predictable. That's everybody's complaint about so-called violent rhetoric. It can inspire unpredictable people to do unpredictable things. And so we have to watch our speech and tone it down, and as everybody says, bring down the temperature, lest we trigger stochastic terrorism. Now, there are a couple of ways you can look at this. Some political players might take part in this intentionally. Well, you can't pin it on me. I'll use violent rhetoric. I know that's going to make some of my followers, even if it's just one or two crazy ones, do something nuts, and I want that. So they're intentionally using this tactic, hoping to trigger violence and yet still be able to escape any blame. And there are others who, trying just to engage in free speech, might unwittingly or unintentionally trigger equally violent action. Either way, we don't want it. And as I think I mentioned earlier and many have discussed, Charlie Kirk himself sharing some of the responsibility here, he just blatantly demonized people. He and all of MAGA. Go back to the Stephen Miller quote I gave you earlier. But now as a kind of a cliched left-winger filled with second thoughts and doubts all the time, well, am I contributing? And all of us on this side, there's an advantage to being a right-winger. They never seem to question themselves. We lefties are questioning ourselves all the time. So yeah, I wonder, well, am I supposed to not call out genocide? Because calling out genocide might give someone the rationale, the excuse to use force against Bibi Netanyahu? Or, God forbid, some anti-Semitic nut takes that as an excuse to strike with violence against people just because they're Jewish? My God, I don't want to be responsible for that. But does that mean that I can't call out genocide when I see it? I'm not supposed to call out fascism, even when it's clearly right in front of me, for the fear that someone might take a gun in their hands to shoot a fascist? Well, everybody's got to make their own decision here. I've got my little podcast. I've got to make my decision. And the way I look at it, if you don't want to be called a perpetrator of genocide, then don't perpetrate genocide. If you don't want to be called a fascist, then don't be a fascist. See, there's this very fine line between demanding safe speech and suppressing free speech. Now, I have never once ever suggested that Charlie Kirk or anyone else be silenced. I've certainly never suggested that they be met with violence. In fact, I go out of my way to make it clear that violence is never the solution. It's not only morally wrong, it's tactically stupid. It will never work. It only strengthens the other side. It's moronic to be violent, in addition to being the height of immorality. So yes, it's just wrong. It's just wrong, and it's also incredibly stupid. I've made that point on this program many times, and I'll continue to do it. I mean, when you look over the whole landscape here, who's being reckless? Who's lying? Remember that woman in the Biden administration? I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember her name. She had some position in the administration. She was tasked with combating misinformation and disinformation online. It was a perfectly reasonable thing to do, trying to minimize misinformation and disinformation, especially at a time when it was really sort of taking off, and China and Russia especially, and to this day continues, flooding American social media with bots. And it was part of her job to combat that. And the right wing in this country demonized her and forced her out. They won that one. They said she was suppressing free speech. They even went so far as to declare, and I heard many of them say this, that part of free speech is the right to lie. The right to lie is part of free speech. Well, maybe technically in the fine print, but it's not a moral right. It may be a technical constitutional right, I'll grant you that, but in no other way is it right. So if you're looking at right, left, moderate, alt-right, whatever, when it comes to free speech, I ask that we just speak the truth. I don't care what your opinions are. You may have opinions opposite of mine. That's fine. Just don't lie. And when you hear lies, call them out. Don't use language as a weapon. This whole Nazi Goebbels kind of propaganda idea of exploiting language is just heinous. Yeah, you can't really pass laws against it, although in other countries they don't necessarily have the First Amendment exactly the way we have it. There are laws. You can't lie. Some countries have very strong laws about lying in advertising, including political advertising. So I suppose we could look at that. I don't know. I'm for the First Amendment, but this is ridiculous. Don't use language as a weapon. When you hear disinformation and misinformation, correct it on the spot. If you've got family, friends sharing this garbage, don't be silent. Correct them. Don't use violent rhetoric. It's not that hard. I walk that tightrope every time I open up my microphone. It's really not that hard. I say the Republican Party should be, what's the word the other person used, annihilated? I'm pretty sure I've never used that word. But I have said that the Republican Party, as it currently stands, is not a legitimate political party. It's a dangerous organization. Yeah, that's pretty harsh. I'm always pretty careful to say I'm talking about the ideas, not the people. I don't want to arrest anybody. I don't want to kill anybody. I want to destroy the right-wing MAGA ideology. Yeah, I do. Yeah, this whole movement, people jump on this bandwagon way too easily. Oh, take the temperature down. No. You can be more succinct. You can be more exact. But bullying people into being quiet, being afraid to speak, that is not the direction we need to go. No. That whole Michelle Obama thing, when they go low, we go high, that's been criticized over the years. This is one area where I agree with that. In language, go high. Speak truth. Speak with clarity. Going high to their going low doesn't mean you're watering down your message. No, it just means no violent rhetoric. We're adults. We can handle that. We can do that. You can do that, right? But we do have a fascist regime coming down hard. Are we cooked? Not yet. I mean, I can still speak for now, but for how long? I can't honestly say how long I'll be able to do this. At the pace they're going, there are no guarantees. I can talk to you today. I don't know if I could talk to you tomorrow. And you can speak up. You can mock the Orange Menace. You can resist the regime. You can even sabotage the regime. You have many freedoms today, including freedom of speech. But you got to use it. You got to use it or lose it. All right, so no more talk about Charlie Kirk. We'll get on to other things next time. All right, I love you. I'll see you out there.